It's Thanksgiving 2019, and we are in South Lake, Texas. Thank you, Bao and Quinn, for hosting our annual family gathering. I have many thanks this Thanksgiving. I'm thankful to have you all as my family, and we are here to celebrate another holiday season. My biggest thanks is to our parents who are no longer with us for their lifetime of sacrifices so we could have liberty and freedom. Our benefactor, Mr. and Mrs. John and Lan Cooper, for bringing us out of danger in 1975. John is also no longer with us. Mrs. Lan Cooper is living in Melbourne, Florida. Without our parents and the Cooper, we simply would not be here today. I also want to thank my older sister, Chị Ngân, for her sacrifices. Being the eldest, she shielded us, me, Pham, and Ngọc, from the hardship of our new beginning in America in 1975. I'm thankful that the United States opened its door for us and more than 130,000 Vietnamese refugees to enter this country to start our new life after the fall of Saigon. I need to tell you our family history of how we escaped communist Vietnam 44 years ago. I feel that if I don't tell our story, then you, and especially our future generations, will grow up missing out the little piece of history that make you who you are. I left Vietnam when I was 12 years old and clueless of what was going on. Younger than you, Uyên, Hoang, and Bear. Pham was 11, Chị Ngân was 18 years old, and Ngọc, Amy, was a baby of 16 months old. Our father was 49 and mother was 46. How we left was so sudden. Over the years, my memory faded. I was also busy coping with life, school, work, college, career, marriage, childbearing, divorce, the passing of our parents. But all along, there was always a nagging voice in my head to go back and understand what happened in 1975. In 2016, I retired after 32 years working for IBM. Now that I have time, I did just that, to retrace the days of our journey crossing the Pacific Ocean to America. So this is our family story. My birth name is Hoang Thị Thu Nguyệt. I'm 56 years old and the fourth child of Pham Hoang Bang, aka Hoang Văn Bang, and Trần Thị Ngọ. My older sister, Hoang Thị Thu Nga, died of illness when she was 19 years old in Saigon. Another sister between me and Chị Ngân, Hoang Thanh Nhan, died shortly after birth due to a heart problem. Bà Bảy was also a big part of our family. She was with us for years. No, our mother did not have two husbands, seeing the differences in our last name. I will tell you about that next. Here is the Pham family tree. Our paternal grandfathers from Hà Đông, North Vietnam, showing that our father was the youngest of 10 children. When he was in his 20s, he changed his name from Pham Hoang Bang to Hoang Văn Bang to sever any association with the communists because he was a member of the Communist Party movement to drive out the French. Disappointed with the communist ideology, he ran away to South Vietnam in 1954. Once in Saigon, he joined the Republic of South Vietnam Army. Years later, the North and South Vietnam went to war until April 30th, 1975. In 1975, with the Americans ending their involvement, Saigon was falling to North Vietnam. Being a soldier, my father was enemy. Not to forget, He deserted them in 1954. So that's a double whammy. Our family had no choice but to run. The alternative would have meant severe punishment in a re-education camp for years, if not death to him, and his family would be destituted with no access to school for the children. It was 5 days before the fall of Saigon. The situation in Saigon deteriorated quickly that our father urged Mother to flee the country. At that time, only civilians could leave. The US government had already issued evacuation orders to both military and civilian Americans. It was Friday, April 25th, 1975. Our father's first attempt was to send Pham and Ngan to go with our uncle's family, Bat Nhan. Pham was just a child, so Ngan had to accompany him. Our uncle's daughter, Han, worked for USAID then. And knowing an American from USAID, they were hoping to join the evacuation effort. But first, they had to go into the airport and wait it with the crowd, hundreds if not thousands of people, to see if they could get into the US DAO, Defense Attaché office, with the hope to get entrance to be airlifted to safety. Later that afternoon, our father came around to check on Pham and Ngan. Things did not go well. Ngan said that our uncle's family did not make them feel included. Plus, she didn't want to be separated from our family. So they abandoned this plan and came home. On their way home, they ran into John and Lan Cooper walking their dog outside of their residence. John Cooper was an engineer working for an American company. He was working at the military base with our father, and over time, they became friends. Lan Cooper then was a young woman who also worked on the base as the telephone switchboard operator. John and Lan got married. Lan's family lived in the countryside, but not in Saigon. In April 1975, Lan's family could not make it to Saigon for the evacuation. The roadways to Saigon were already closed. Saturday, April 26, 1975, our last day in Vietnam. John Cooper came to our house around 9 a.m. to meet with our parents. Father asked John if he could bring Mother and us 4 children with them to evacuate. He accepted, knowing that we had a family friend in Arlington, Virginia, ready to receive us. Mother pleaded to have our beloved housekeeper Babai to go too, but unfortunately he declined. Our parents had 2 hours to make a go, no-go decision. I'm fairly certain that Father knew, barring some miracle, he would be separated from his family, maybe for years, possibly forever. John Cooper was a good man. Under the circumstances, he could have taken a lot of money or everything we had to bring us out, but he took nothing from us and took on a humanitarian responsibility. And so we prepared to evacuate. Each of us grabbed our knapsack with a few change of clothing. These knapsacks were made just weeks before, anticipating the day we had to flee. Mother packed a small luggage of medicines and milk powder for now. Babai made some packed cơm ruốc for the travels. Ngan said that morning she had gone to buy the basic essentials: bar soap, powder laundry detergent, toothbrush, toothpaste, etc. She wasn't sure why she bought these things, but as it turned out, her foresight became so important for our daily survival later on. Our father and uncle Bat Nhan took us to John and Lan Cooper's residence around 1 or 2 p.m. Then Mother and us 4 children, together with John and Lan Cooper, got on a military truck and headed to the airport. we left everything behind, without saying goodbye to anyone. Mother only had on hand $600 cash and about $2,000 worth in gold, a life-saving gift from Babai, our beloved housekeeper. 6 p.m. We enter the C-130 from its belly, all crouched down on the floor of the airplane. Not enough place to sit because the plane was packed with people. The plane took off with side doors open, and U.S. soldiers pointing machine guns outside. The noise was deafening, and everyone was scared and crying, but it was so noisy that we could not hear ourselves crying. Our C-130 takeoff was extremely dangerous as enemy forces were closing in on Saigon. 2 days before, gunfire damaged a C-130 as it flew over the Saigon area. Earlier on the same day, both a C-130 and a C-141 were hit by bullets near Tan Son Nhut Air Base. 1 day after we left, the C-141 flights out of Saigon ceased. 2 days after we left, Communist artillery hit and set a C-130 on fire on the ground. C-130 flights out of Saigon ended. The code name for our airlift was Operation New Life. 10 p.m. Our first stop from Saigon was Clark International Airport, the Philippines. We were there for 2 hours. Because we were with John Cooper, we received priority treatment right away. Food, drinks for the adults, and milk for Ngọc. Our belongings were checked in and handled, and we waited for our next flight to Wake Island. Midnight, we boarded a charter plane, TIA, Trans International Airways. It was nice, made up for the harrowing takeoff on the C-130 out of Saigon. Everyone had their own seat, and we could recline to rest. They gave us pillows and blankets. There was more sandwich, Coca-Cola, milk, more food than we could consume. Even Ngọc, as a baby, had her own seat, but she clung to Chị Ngân. So Chị Ngân took over Ngọc seat and laid down with Ngọc in her arms. Everyone drifted into sleep as the plane made its way across the Pacific Ocean. We arrived on Wake Island Sunday morning. The U.S. processed all refugees on these islands before entering the mainland. We got immunization shots. Special visas were given. Our cơm ruốc was thrown out, but we got to keep our luggage of medicines and powdered milk. Because Wake was not inhabited island, there was nothing when we arrived. This was when the basic essentials that Chị Ngân bought saved us all. We had powder detergent to wash our clothes, soap bar to bathe, etc. We stayed on Wake Island for 4 days. We had 2 rooms and ate at a cafeteria. On Wednesday, April 30th, Mother, Chị Ngân, John, and Lan Cooper heard on the BBC about the fall of Saigon, and they all cried. What made it worse was we had no words on our father or loved ones left behind. Mother and Chị Ngân couldn't sleep and stay up all night. John and Lan Cooper were so good to us. They could have left us and returned to his hometown in Florida, but they decided to stay with us to ensure our safety. And so we push on. Friday, May 2nd, 1975. Once again, we enter the belly of another C-130 for Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. It was a 17-hour flight with 4 hours stopover in Hawaii. After 21 hours, we were exhausted, being the first plane load of refugees to arrive in Fort Chaffee.
Refugees are destined for temporary homes at Elgin Air Force Base, Florida, and Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. Tony Sargent was in Arkansas for the arrival of 67 aboard the first of 7 flights due today. However uncertain the refugees' future may be, they got a warm reception this morning. Most of the placards in an airport crowd of several hundred persons were signs of greeting. Governor David Pryor and local officials were on hand. There's been a concerted effort to make the refugees feel welcome in Arkansas. Only 2 or 3 protesters showed up in the generally friendly crowd. In the town of Fort Smith, initial uneasiness about the refugees has diminished after official reassurances that the Vietnamese will be confined to the base until they're resettled. People here have been collecting toys for refugee children. They've given clothing and have volunteered various kinds of assistance for the South Vietnamese.
I think you will find that the vast majority of the people in this community are charitable and feel a moral responsibility towards them.
Those who will supervise the refugees' stay at Fort Chaffee say suspicion will disappear as Americans understand more about the South Vietnamese.
We're getting people who are viable in terms of their potential to enter the American economy, enter the American society, and to become American citizens.
But no Vietnamese can leave here without an American sponsor who will be financially responsible for him. The government has no figures so far on the sponsorship program. Sponsors might be hard to find in the tight economy, but at least some of the refugees are not discouraged.
I feel sad for the loss of my fatherland, but at the same time I am confident that we will make our new life, start a new life in this land of freedom.
Tony Sargent, CBS News, Fort Chaffee, Arkansas.
2 days later, John and Lan Cooper said goodbye to us and returned to their hometown in Florida. We were safe in Fort Chaffee. We learned about our father's escape from his letters to Mother and Thị Ngân later on. On Saturday, April 26, 1975, after we left our house, our father tried to follow us into the airport to ensure we got on the plane, but he couldn't. He tried a couple of different ways, but could only see 4 C-130 transport planes, but not us entering it. The next day, Sunday, April 27, 1975, he was certain that there would be no other way for him to get out of Saigon. So he spent the day tearing apart documents. Anything that tied him to the Americans, he got rid of, including personal letters. Then he packed 1 change of civilian clothing in an old case and brought that to the base. Monday, April 28, 1975, 2 days before the fall. Our father was having dinner at home, and at around 6 p.m., there was 3 A-37 attack planes from Vietnam Air Force bombing Tân Sơn Nhất Airport and flew over the city. This caused gunfires to break out everywhere. At 7 p.m., he phoned his base, and while there was still some movement in the streets despite the 24-hour curfew, he took the risk to go to the base. At the base, he received guns and was ready to fight. That night, he slept in his military uniform. Tuesday, April 29, 1975, he woke up at 4 a.m. to find that the North Army started to unleash gunfires toward the airport. His unit went to the bunker. Over the next few hours, the attack lessened, and they came out to the cafeteria for some coffee. At 10 a.m., he received a call from another officer saying that his commanding officer had abandoned them and asking him why he was still there. With that phone call, chaos broke out within the unit and people ran for their life. Father was thinking of changing to civilian clothing and leave the base. While he was deciding on what to do next, he saw Colonel Dung and Colonel Thịnh just coming back from chasing after the commanding officer, but they lost him. He approached them to see what he could find out. Then together with a few other officers, they took 2 jeeps and drove to the airport, hopefully to find a way to escape by airlift. But U.S. Marines would not let them enter the DAO, Defense Attaché Office, where the airlift operation was taking place. There was no other option, so they hung around. Our father was thinking that if they could not get through to the DAO after 3 p.m., he would have to leave the airport, fearing more danger approaching. But an incredible luck happened at that moment. Major General Phan ran past, and so our father and 2 officers followed and tailed him. They made it past the U.S. Marines checkpoint. At 6 p.m. that night, he was finally airlifted to the USS Midway. This airlift was called Operation Frequent Wind, done mostly by helicopters from the DAO. It only started at 2 p.m. and ending that night. What a short window of opportunity, and our father made it just in time to narrowly escape. Father was on the USS Midway for 1 day. Then he was moved to another ship with thousands of other refugees. And for the next 3 days, they drifted at sea. Each day, he only had a handful of cooked rice and enough drinks to wet his lips. There was no cover, and he was exposed to the elements. All his life, he had never experienced such hunger and thirst. He watched mothers and babies on board, and he thought about us and wondered if we had to go through the same terrible experience. He worried for Ngọc being a baby, as he saw other babies near death with little food or drink. On May 5th, they arrived at Subic Bay, and for the next 3 days, he rested and recuperated. Each day, he would eat 5 meals to make up for the hunger on the ship. On May 8th, he boarded a plane for Oro Point, Guam. He stayed at various camps on Guam until he reunited with us at Fort Chaffee in early June. The conditions on Guam were not as good compared to Fort Chaffee. They slept in tents, and the weather was hot like Saigon. He missed his family with every waking hour. Each day, he went to read the list of newcomers looking for us, but no such name. He had no money. He only had 1 change of clothing and received additional donated clothing. Because he did not think he would be able to escape, he had destroyed all important information, including U.S. addresses and our phone numbers of our to-be sponsor, Auntie. He relied on his memory of what he could remember, street address or P.O. box. It was a constant worry, not knowing our whereabouts and if we were safe. Each day, he filled his time with writing letters to us and to anyone he could remember name and address outside of Vietnam. Each day, the American Red Cross gave him 1 small sheet of paper to write front and back. His writing was so small, so he could fit more with less. The Red Cross would mail the letters free of charge. He wrote and sent Western Union wires to Auntie, and for days he received nothing back. When we were separated, there was no way to find one another quickly. At this time, there was no internet available to the general public, no social media, Facebook, Instagram, etc. There was no cell phone, iPad, or personal computer. The only method of communication was written letters, phone calls, or Western Union telegrams. Our method was to use Auntie in Arlington, Virginia, as the receiver-sender of letters and telegrams. Our father would send his letters to us via Auntie's address. Auntie in turn would read and then forward them to us. Chị Ngân and our mother would send letters to our father via Auntie. He would read and send them to our father. When our father was on the USS Midway on May 1st, he did ask a soldier to send a letter he had written to Auntie, letting him know that he got out. While this letter did finally arrive to Auntie, it took weeks. On May 19, 1975, our father received a phone call from Auntie letting him know that we were safe at Fort Chaffee. On May 20th, 1975, Mother and Thich Ngan received a phone call from Auntie letting us know that our father got out safely at Guam. We were in the dark for 24 days not knowing about each other's whereabouts. Over 130,000 Vietnamese refugees were processed in Guam and Wake. Without Auntie, it would have taken much longer for us to find one another. Our father waited at Guam and could not come to Fort Chaffee just yet because Fort Chaffee was full. Refugees had to leave the camp to make room for others to come. Finally, in early June, we were reunited as a family after being separated for over a month.
Than 43,000 refugees who want to be integrated into American life. This week, ABC's David Snell visited Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, where more than half of them are temporarily housed, and he found the process is very slow.
They wait in line for their meals patiently, as they have done for 2 months now, as they may very well do for some months to come. There are 24,000 refugees still at Fort Chaffee, still waiting for sponsors 2 months after their arrival.
For ears.
Ear.
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 Very good.
But serious language training for adults that might make them more attractive employment prospects is only now beginning. Job training programs recommended by volunteer agencies as essential to the placement of many refugees are still non-existent. Government officials say there isn't time for training, that all the refugees will be gone from Fort Chaffee by October. The directors of the volunteer agencies charged with finding the sponsors necessary for the refugees to leave here call that ridiculous. Still, while many remain here, daily there are some who leave. Ta Van Tuck was a teacher in Saigon whose daughter Min is married to an American. She hadn't seen her family for 10 years and, with the communist victory, feared for their lives.
I never dreamed my family came to Miami or came to United States. And now I'm so happy when my family came to United States and live close to me.
After completing their immigration checkout and swearing they are not traffickers in sex, drugs, or communism, Min's family was given $100 each by the International Rescue Committee, which will try to help them find jobs when they arrive in Miami. An event delayed until next week by the fact that planes out of here are bulging with holiday travelers and with other refugees. Refugees anxious about the future but happy to finally have sponsors, to be leaving Fort Chaffee, to be heading toward their new lives. David Snell, ABC News, Fort Chaffee, Arkansas.
Unlike the Pham family climbing over mountains to escape the Nazis from the movie The Sound of Music, we did not sing nor dance. but we did hop over mountains and oceans. I'm doing this for you, the next generation. Vi, Hui, Qua, Huyên, Quang, Bear, Vu, Bing, and Hayden. For you to always remember the sacrifices of your grandparents and your mom/aunt/grandma Kingwood, without whom you would not be here today. And have a special place in your heart for Mr. and Mrs. John and Lan Cooper.